Welcome to Rise and Shine, your daily business tech boost with me, Charly Leetham. If you're a small business owner looking to simplify technology and get real, actionable advice from someone with 35 years of IT experience, you're in the right place. Every episode, I'll dive into tools and systems like email, CRM, marketing and tracking, and I'll break them down into bite-sized tips you can use straight away. Your time is valuable, so let's get straight to the point. It's time to work smarter, not harder. Rise and Shine. It's your daily dose of business tech inspiration with me, Charly Leetham, episode number 587. And I'm going to be digging in a little further on the domain name system and how changes you make to your domain name entries are sent out through the internet. Now, this is a follow-on from yesterday's episode where I explained how the lookups work, how your domain name is translated into numbers so that all of the devices in the internet can actually get your traffic to and from the area that they need to be in. That's a terrible synopsis. I'm going to recommend that you go and listen to yesterday's episode because I do a far better job of it than I do today. Than I did just then. Okay, so today though, we're going to talk about how when you make a change to the DNS entries, the domain name system entries, how that gets sent out through the internet and how when you're sitting in Australia and you make a change in Australia, that gets out to people in America and Europe and all of those places. I touched on it yesterday. I want to dig into it today in a little more detail. And the reason I want to do that is this is often an area where we as business owners or business owners get tripped up. They make a change on their DNS and then someone will ring them and say, but I'm getting the old server, or your mail's not getting through, and it's really important to understand why these things can occur. Now, I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty nuts and bolts of it, but I'm going to give you the overview of how it works, and hopefully it will give you an idea of where to start looking if you're going to have problems, give you some things that you can do, what I would consider best practice things you can do if you're going to make changes to your domain name, if you're going to make changes to your infrastructure and change where your hosting provider is or where your mail servers are, all of those things. So let's just get started and see where I run with this one. First of all, we use a term called propagation. I want to address the fact that the term propagation, we say when we make a change, when we move a server, when we change mail servers, when we need to add in a new service, we say, oh, now we've got to wait for those changes to propagate. Now, what do we mean by that? Propagation literally means everything needs to update. Those changes are sent through the network, distributed through the domain name service network, and update from yesterday, resolver in the network. So the domain name servers in the network get the updates. Think of it a little bit like updating your business phone number in every phone directory in the world. Each directory will update at its own pace. Okay, so I can update my phone directory. I can, in this case, let's say I send out the update and I say to my nearest contacts, hey, I've got a new phone number. Can you send this out to your next level of people? And someone will pick up and go, yep, we'll do that right away. And that goes out straight away. And then the person next to them goes, yeah, I'll get to that. And 3 days later, they send the update. Everything updates at its own pace. And then they send it out to the next level, and then they send it out to the next level. It's similar to that with the DNS network, the domain name system network. Yesterday I explained it's a bit more like a hub and spoke network and a mesh network than just, one server talking to another server talking to another server. You've got a group in the middle, and then you've got more on the outside, and you've got more on the outside, and you've got more on the outside. And the changes have to sort of disseminate all the way through all of those servers. As opposed to my analogy there where I said, I send the update out and ask people to send that update out. The DNS system is not a push infrastructure. It's not a push mechanism. It's a pull mechanism. What that means is that when you set up your domain name, whether you set it up on your server, whether you use Cloudflare, whether you use a third-party DNS manager, you are telling the internet that this is the authoritative server. This is the server that is the source for all of the records for my domain name, this one little server here. If you're getting records that are signed to say that they've come from this server, then those are the right servers. If you're getting records from other servers, for my domain name from other servers, those records are not correct. That's the first thing. You've got your authoritative server here. So you put your changes on here. Then you have to wait. And you have to wait for the upstream nodes, the nodes that are connected to your name, so your source server, to come back to you and say, hey, have you got the new updates? I need the new updates for this server, for this domain name, please. How does that happen? How does it know when to come back and ask for a change in the records? And does it ask for the changes in all the records, or does it only ask for some of them? I don't know if you've heard the term. I try not to use it when I'm talking to people. It's called time to live, TTL. Now, if you have had to go and change any records in your domain name on any of your servers, you'll know that there is a number that you have to set, and it's normally in milliseconds or seconds. And you've got to set it. And what that says is that what that tells the rest of the network when the records start to go through is, do not ask for an update on this domain name or on this particular record for this amount of time. So when that timer runs down, the upstream node will come back to the authoritative, the source server, let me use that word, and say, hey, can I have this record, please? And they'll go, yep, here's your record. Oh, cool, that's the same. I don't have to change it. Yep, here's the record. Oh, that's changed. I've got to change it. So then it gets changed on the next one up. And then the TTL has run out on the next server up, and it goes, oh, I need the update. So it comes back and it comes down to the one that it's connected to. Have you got a new update? Oh, you do. Cool. Yep, I'll update that. So it's not instant. In fact, it can take a while for all of those little changes to make effect. Now, some TTLs are set to a minute, 5 minutes. Some TTLs are set to 24 hours or more. It's a real pain when they're set to 24 hours or more, because we have to wait for that to time down before our changes start to even filter through the internet and start being updated. So if so those changes may not actually be, if it's set to 24 hours, I've got notes here, I've just tripped myself up, haven't I? If the TTL is set to 24 hours or more, those changes aren't going to be seen by people in the internet for at least 24 hours. That's what, and that is why you get some records come up really quickly, and some services come up really quickly, and some services don't. There is no hard and fast rule as to what a record should be set to. It is entirely dependent on your support person, on the advice you're being given by the service you're using. No hard and fast rule. There's minimums and there's maximums, but there's no hard and fast rule. So I've heard it said, oh, just lower your TTL and it will get it to change more quickly. Well, yes and no. It will only get it to change more quickly after that change has propagated up. So if you've got 24 hours set on a TTL, a time to live, and you make a change, you say, look, drop this down to 5 minutes and give it the new update, it's still going to take up to 24 hours for that change to filter through, because you've got that timer set already. It doesn't retroactively change. Okay, so what would you do here? I'm just checking my records here. Okay, yeah. Okay, so what happens? I'm just making sure I'm getting things in the right order. So you get to change the speed of your propagation, but only after you've changed it, if that makes sense. If you are going to do a migration, and you know you've got a migration coming up, and you know you're going to want to, in 3 weeks or 2 weeks, change the IP address of the server because you're moving the server and you're going to have to update the DNS records to say the server now resides here, not here. What I would be doing is, as part of my early planning, is going into my DNS and changing the time to live on in this case, the A record. I explained that yesterday. The A record, so that it requests, the requests for that get made quicker. So when I finally come to make the change on my DNS, the rest of the network will be, right, yeah, we've got to request this every 5 minutes. We've got to request this every 5 minutes. 5 minutes, have you got a new update? Have you got a new update? Once I've made that change, I can then, and I'm sure it's working, I can then go in and bring the TTL back up. You shouldn't have it set at 5 minutes. You shouldn't be asking name servers to request updates every 5 minutes unless you're making changes, basically. Like I said, there's no hard and fast rule. It really is entirely up to you and your DNS admin, or your DNS admin and your tech support team as to what they do. But that's what I would be doing. When I know I've got a change to make, go and change the TTL early so that when you're ready to make that change, it will just go through a lot quicker. I mean, if you can imagine 5 minutes to 24 hours, huge difference. The other thing to consider is that, and I spoke about it yesterday, some DNSs and some ISPs will cache, so we need to make sure that their caches are clearing out. Now, there's nothing you can do about that. You don't know who's caching. You don't know who's got a DNS cache on. It's a matter of sometimes when it happens, and browsers cache. So when I go and change a server over and I say, okay, let me go look at the new server, that's the old server. I can tell that's the old server, and I have to go and clear my cache on my browser, and I've got to restart the browser and do all sorts of things to get it to clear the cache and go and get the new IP address and get the new server and get the information off the new server. That happens. We don't know that that's going to happen until it does, and then we have to deal with it. How do we check to see if our propagation is actually working? So yeah, it's one thing for me to sit here and say, look, this all just works. This all just happens. There's no problems with it. It just all happens. There are problems. There can be problems, not are problems. There can be problems. There can be problems with a DNS entry being malformed, incorrectly entered, and it causes problems. It could be that a DNS server somewhere has just failed to request the updates. It might be that we haven't set our name servers correctly, and we're using the wrong source server to make the updates. There's a couple of other things that could happen, but it could go wrong. It could also just be that it's slow, and we want to see how far through the internet these changes have traversed. That's a good word. So what's a good way of doing it? Well, there's a service. There's an online service called WHATS, WHATS, MyDNS.net. You can go to that, you can put your domain name in, and it will show you the servers where the changes have been made, and it will show you the servers that are still waiting to get the updates. It's really fantastic. It helps me no end when I'm looking for things. I also use things like MXToolbox SuperTool lookup to see what the A record is, to see what the DNS is telling me, like what it's telling me in its various bits and pieces. And then if I'm certain that the DNS is propagated throughout the internet and this end service isn't working the way it should do, that's when I get onto the other guys and say, hey, listen, we've got a problem here. Can you clear caches, give it a refresh, do whatever you need to do to make your end work, because your end hasn't requested the updates and hasn't applied the updates in the time that it needs to. I see that, honestly, I see that a lot when we're doing, when we're doing the authorization of the domain for DKIM and DMARC and SPF. You know, when you go into MailChimp and it says you've got to authorize your domain, or MailChimp or something, you've got to authorize your domain. Go and add these records to your domain name, your DNS records, and we'll verify that they're there, and you enter them and it says, yes, we've made the changes, and then you go and you check, it says, no, not done. You go, but they're there, I can see them. No, we can't see them. That's why that doesn't work. That's why that's not working right then and there. That's why it says to wait. Bringing the TTL down helps a little. Like I said, it's a pull system, not a push. So initially, that's not going to be that's just not going to work. After a while, though, that app will come up and say, yep, it's working. Now, if you've made the changes, if you've set the TTL to a reasonable time frame, and they're still saying after 24 hours, no, we don't have that update, there's probably another problem that you need to troubleshoot. I would go through, what's my DNS? I would go through MXToolbox Super Tool, and I will have a look and see, are they seeing the changes? Because if I'm getting multiple points of verification, I am starting to reduce down points of failure, and I can start to look at potential points of failure rather than saying, I don't even know where to start looking for the problem. So that's how you would check your propagation, and that's why you might want to check your propagation. What are some of the risks that can occur when you make changes to your DNS? And it's got us, I'm going to use the term propagate. All those changes have to get out through the internet. Let's look at some of the changes that you might want to make. You might want to move your server, and you might be using a third-party DNS manager, which means you've got to go in and tell the DNS what IP address you're using for the server. Even if you're using a new hosting provider and you change it, they've still got to get those changes out into the internet. So you might change your server over, you might change your hosting provider. That's going to change the IP address for your server. Those changes need to be out into the internet. You may change your mail service. You may change from using server-based mail to using Microsoft Mail, or you might change from Microsoft Mail to using Google Mail, or Google Mail to Zoho Mail, or some other system. So what can happen during propagation? What are the risks? Well, the risk is that propagation doesn't happen, or it takes time for it to happen. So you change the server over and you think, great, my new web server's up and running, my new site's up and running, I'm going to send out a broadcast email, and you send it out and people get back to you and say, but we're seeing the old, what changed? We're still seeing the old site. That's because those changes haven't come out. So when they've gone and said, hey, give me the address for xyzwidgetcompany.com, that'll do. The internet's gone, or the resolver that they connect to, the server that they connect to that says this is the IP address you want for this domain name, hasn't got its updates yet. So when you're doing things like that, I would recommend that you check your propagation and you give it a day or so before you send out a big notification saying that you've made the changes. In case of an email, you could lose email. Or you might find that email is sent to both servers, or some email is sent to this, like if you're going from the server to Microsoft Mail, some email ends up on the server and some email ends up in your Microsoft inbox. Why? Because some parts of the internet is still saying, oh, well, they're using their server for mail, we'll just send it to this address, and the rest of the internet's going, yep, we got those changes, we're going to send it to Microsoft. There's nothing you can really do about that except understand it and manage it. As I said, if you know you're going to be making changes ahead of time, I would be going in and reducing the time to live, so that first of all, by reducing the time to live, when everything else times out, they say, give me the new record, and they say, yep, the update is that now you've got to ask me every 5 minutes for this change. They go, oh, cool. So 5 minutes later, have you got to change? Have you got to change? So by the time you're ready to go, that one change that says you've got to ask more often has already propagated out, has already spread out through the internet. You're fine there. Then when your changes go through, the requests are sent more quickly, so that that change gets out more quickly. In terms of mail, I would probably be checking both servers at least for 24 hours before turning one off. Just make sure it's all across and all working. There is a really small likelihood that would occur with mail servers. I've seen it once or twice, not often, but it can occur. I see more often old server, new server thing happening. It's still not very common, but I see it more often. Okay, so there's some things to think about with your DNS. I hope I didn't confuse you too much. I hope I didn't bang on too much. I just really wanted to get out that it's not an instantaneous thing. It's a pull system. It's not a push system. There are things you can do that make it work a little better if you've got to make changes, but also understand that if you have to make changes, you might just need to wait 24, 48 hours for all of those changes to migrate through the internet. All right, guys, what do you think? Have you had troubles with your DNS? Have you had troubles making changes, having them propagated, them just failing and you having to do something else? Let me know. Come across to my community, askcharlyleetham.locals.com, and join the conversation there. You can leave comments wherever you are watching or listening to this video. If this video has been useful to you, please give it a like. I really would appreciate that. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel and ring the notification bell to find out when I drop more content. See you guys. Hey there, thanks so much for tuning in to Rise and Shine, your daily business tech boost. I hope today's episode gave you some actionable insights that will make your business tech work smarter for you. If you found value, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with other small business owners who could use a daily boost. For more tips, tools, and resources, visit www.askcharlyleetham.com. Until next time, keep rising, keep shining, and let's make tech simple together.